Okay, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Iowa Prison Perspectives. For those of you who have not been here before, this is a collaboration between the Iowa Justice Action Network, Living Beyond the Bars of Iowa, and Iowa Cure. And the purpose of this is to inform you, the public, about the prison system in Iowa. I interview people who have worked in the system. I interview people who have re-entered society from having been incarcerated. I interview people who are advocates like myself, and I interview loved ones, people who have someone that they love and care about who's incarcerated. So today we are fortunate to have a woman who actually worked in the prison system at Anamosa and also has been very active in helping young men when they return to society from prison, specifically several juvenile lifers who have gotten out because of the law that passed that changed the age of adulthood from 16 to 18. So Tammy Diesburg is her name, and she's has a lot to share with you about her perceptions of what it was like to work in at Anamosa and help the guys up front at the desks, and also her experience of helping people when they got out of prison. And she also has some information to share with you about her perspectives of what she thinks would help people who are, while they're incarcerated, as well as especially when they get out of prison, some of the needs that are very, very difficult and the barriers that are difficult to overcome. So I will now turn it over to Tammy, and we're going to do this as a conversation. So I may jump in. Sometimes you may see me, sometimes you may see her, but first I will turn it over to Tammy. So it's all yours.
First of all, Sue, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to speak today. Um, as Sue said, my name is Tammy Diesburg. I started my career at the Anamosa State Penitentiary, working for Iowa Prison Industries. I started out my career in the purchasing office for Iowa Prison Industries, and I was an accounting clerk one. And I started way back in 1975. Um, I worked in the purchasing office for a couple of years, and then eventually I took a position in the sales office. And I continued my career throughout that time in the sales office and worked through various positions in that office. And when I retired, I was an administrative assistant too. And I retired in December of 2010 with almost 36 years in. During that time, I was pretty much worked just selling the products that the prison industries made. And we sold those products throughout the state of Iowa to like counties and cities, state agencies, and that type of thing. My main thing that I sold were signs throughout the state of Iowa. So I worked a lot with the sign shop, and we would make all sorts of signs. We a lot of times made specialty signs, and I worked closely with the inmates or residents, I should say, making specialty signs, and I would get the specifications that the customers needed, and then would talk with the residents down there, and then they would give me drawings, and I would get back to the customers and get those approved, and then they would use the different things in the shops to make these specialty signs. They had all sorts of equipment that they learned how to make the different types of signs on. And, they got very educated on all sorts of different things to make these signs and stuff to get to the customers.
Did
They
you
were
did
very,
you
excuse
did
me.
you did you make signs for the state of Iowa, like
Yes,
stop signs and different
yes.
road signs? Okay.
Yeah, all sorts of different road signs. We also made signs for like churches and that type of thing too. Anybody that was a nonprofit organization we could sell to. But they made an awful lot of specialty things. And so that's, we worked a lot on those types of signs as well as just the standard signs. Um, So occasionally I went inside to work with them on some of the bigger projects and that type of thing. And so I did have some contact, but my contact was limited. So I'm not able to tell you some of the things like a counselor or a supervisor would be able to tell you, because I worked on the outside of the prison most of the time. I've had office out front rather than offices inside of the prison. So
Do
like I
you have do you have any idea what the pay was for the incarcerated men? Do you even know
I
the
can't tell
range
you
of
that for
pay?
sure. I really don't know what their pays
Okay.
were. I think my husband Tim will be able to get into that part of it more so. Um, I know the shops paid a lot more than what a lot of the others um jobs did within the prison. So getting into Iowa Prison Industries as a job was a lot better than a lot of the other ones. So they like to work for Iowa Prison Industries because that pay was a lot better for them than what it was for a lot of the other jobs within the institution. So it was it was a good pay. And when they closed a couple of the shops, like the furniture shop and the custom wood shop, and then also the Fort Madison furniture shop, that was quite um, you know, it took quite a toll on their training opportunities for the residents and so forth, because those are gainful opportunities for them once they get out of the prison, because that's quite a skill for them to learn while they're incarcerated. And when they take those opportunities away from them, that's a real big thing, for them once they are released, not to have that skill any longer, while they're incarcerated, to be able to have those jobs available for them. So no longer having those jobs within the prison took a took a lot away from them. So, but another thing that I think that I've seen while especially once I'm no longer working there and started helping some of the individuals once they're released, is I think that one of the things that DOC should maybe think about helping the incarcerated individuals with is maybe getting some type of a license before they're released, whether it's some type of a restricted license or whatever, but they need to be able to get around once they're out of prison, because they're expected to go out and get a job or go to interviews or, try to find housing and that type of thing to keep them out of prison, or, to be, not go back into prison. But they don't have a way to get around or to get to interviews or to get to jobs if there aren't buses available, where they're located, or if they don't have family to help them get around or whatever. Um, they have all this stuff that's expected of them, but if they don't have a license once they get out of prison, it's really hard for them to be able to get around. So I think that's something that should be looked at, and maybe help them to have something like that before they're released, so that they have an opportunity to be successful once they're out of prison. Um,
It's almost a necessity
it
in the
is.
world today to have a license and transportation. Other than in Iowa, public transportation is not like it is in Chicago or on the West Coast or other places. It's just not very available, especially if you live in a rural area or a
Right.
small town.
Small town, that's just, you don't have taxis, or you don't maybe have buses or whatever that run, unless you live in a little bit bigger city or something like that. Um, and also we need to continue to educate the public, such as what you're doing. You know, not everybody is always willing to support these individuals once they're released from prison. We need to, they need the support of the community, and not everybody is willing to do that. Some people don't want them living in their neighborhoods or working around them or anything. I know individuals that I've tried to, to speak to them about it. And some of them don't even want to listen to what you have to say. They're not always willing to hear what you have to tell them or whatever. They just close their ears and walk away from you. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And, we just need to try to continue to educate them and so forth. But, all we can do is try to help them and do what we do and continue to support them. But the more we can educate the community, the better off we are. So
Well, we need to change the narrative from punishment to rehabilitation. We need to change people's hearts and minds, the way they look at people who've been in prison. There's such a tendency to look at, if you go to prison, you're a bad person, and not see that people actually do make changes, and particularly people who were arrested and committed their crimes when they were young and their brain
exactly.
was not mature and developed. I mean, we all made decisions that when we were teenagers that we would not make as adults, I hope.
Oh, exactly.
I
Exactly.
like to believe that anyway. Yeah.
That's
So,
totally true. I think we've all done things that we aren't proud of, and and like you said, a lot of them did things at a very young age, and they have made big changes in their life, so they need to be given chances and have an opportunity to, be real. They've been rehabilitated and should be given a second chance to prove themselves. Um, my husband Tim and I have helped several individuals that have gotten out of prison. We've helped them find housing, we've helped them find jobs, we've taken them to interviews or to appointments that they've had. We've loaned out our car even so that they could get take their driving test to be able to get their license. We've given them furniture and supplies. A lot of times when people are giving furniture away that is decent and stuff, we stick it in our big building that we have here at home and keep it on hand so that when individuals get out of prison that they can come and take a look, and if they find something that they like, to help them get started with their making their new home or whatever, that they have a little something to get by with until they can afford to get something nicer. We have a little rental house, and we have rented to an individual once he was released, and he lived there for a period of time until he got married and moved on to start his new life and so forth. But you just need to help these individuals a little bit. If it was something that maybe the state could adopt a mentoring program, that would be amazing, to help these men and women once they get out. I know there'd have to be restrictions or whatever, but it's something that could certainly help these men and women once they get out, if they'd have something like that to lean on. Um, those are just a few things that we've done to help individuals that we've seen there are some barriers that they have of getting out of prison, and maybe others could do stuff like that as well.
Richard, you got any other question?
No volume.
people who come out of prison are really, really wanting to do well and wanting to do right and wanting to be a success. And then they run into these barriers, like housing is a problem, and getting to jobs and getting hired because of their history, and so many choices and so much expense out here. It's expensive to live.
It
It's
is
expensive for
expensive.
those of us who've been doing it all these years.
Exactly.
So so I agree with you that if the state somehow could find ways to be more helpful in that, it would certainly decrease the recidivism rate, and people could build on the excitement and the hope and the skills that they have when they do enter society. It's pretty hard to do that without support, without
It
a
is.
support network. If you don't have people behind you who are willing to help, it's really, really, really rough. And you can be very, very skilled, but if you can't get to a job, you can't get to a job. If you can't get to an interview, if you don't have a phone, I mean, there are just a lot of things that are barriers. And you and Tim have done wonderful at helping people, and I really applaud you. You have no idea how much I respect the two of you and what you have done and all of the effort that you have made and the commitment that you have continued since retirement. It was never just a job to you, it was always heartfelt. I mean, you really believed and wanted to help. So I really, really, for one, really appreciate that. And I know a lot of people do. And I know the guys that you have helped do because I've talked to some of them. I know how much they value and appreciate you and how appreciated you still are by people who are incarcerated. So is there anything else that you want to make sure that you say? You've covered what I believe you've covered what you think needs to the changes. Could you sort of just reiterate those, what you think would be helpful for people when they're coming out that would make their reentry less traumatic?
Yeah, I pretty much covered what I had, but I believe basically that they just they need licenses, they need support, they need housing when they get out. They just need people to help back them up. They need someone to help mentor them, or they need a place that would, even if they had some place to go that could help them with some of these problems, as far as giving them advice of where they could go to get, their housing, or even if they had like a facility that would help them with some of those different things that they needed, if they had some kind of a facility to go to that would help them locate the different things that they needed, jobs or interviews or housing or what they needed to be successful once they get out. But, some of these guys get out, they've been incarcerated since maybe they're 15 or 16 years old. They don't even have any idea what the real world is all about. You know, they're totally lost from what, if they've been incarcerated for 30 years or something. This world has changed immensely since the time that they've been locked up until now. you know Things have changed, and they're at a total loss once they get out. you know some of these guys have never driven a car, you know if they've been locked up before they were ever received a license. They It's a big change for these guys.
It's
So
overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
it is overwhelming. Some of us know what it's like. We need help in the world sometimes. It's hard to be all on your own. We all need someone to kind of help us and back us up once in a while. Sometimes
For
it takes an army to raise a family, or it takes you know, a lot of other people in our world to help us through. So we can't expect to just throw someone out on the streets and to do it all on their own. They need help. So
exactly.
everything
Exactly.
that we can do to help these individuals once they get out, so that they don't re-victimize somebody, or, whatever, so that they can stay out and the taxpayers don't have to continue to support them. We're better off once they get out if we can help them so that they don't re-enter the prison system. So
Mhm.
anyway,
And they can be successful and live and
exactly.
contribute to society and be a benefit to themselves and to their families. So
Yeah.
yes, you have done a lot to help people.
Well,
And
thank you.
don't,
So have you,
don't
Sue. You've done
well,
an amazing job, and you continue to help and support these guys like no other person that I could possibly think of. So you've just been amazing, and you continue to work and help these guys like nobody that I've ever known. But I also wanted to say we know of a couple of these young gentlemen that have gotten out, and they have been so successful in their life. They're making more money than either my husband or I made at our jobs. They've got computer jobs that are making over $100,000 a year. We've got another gentleman that does welding that's simply amazing. Another guy that's been married and has a family now and stuff, and they're just doing amazing out there. So we couldn't be more proud of them. They're like sons to us, actually, So we're just proud extra parents, and we just are, you just are very proud of the success story that they have. So, um, you know, we're just happy to help them and see them be successful in their life.
Yes, and you've done a lot. You've done wonderful for a number of people. And and the beauty of it to me is, like I said earlier, your compassion and your commitment even after retirement, that it was never just a job to you. And people know that. People can feel when someone really cares versus when it's just a job or when it's just lip service. So blessings to you and to Tim also. And thank you very much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate your time and the value that you bring to informing the public about prison in Iowa and about reentry in Iowa. I agree with you that the public needs to know and understand about not only what goes on in prison, but what goes on when a person is coming out of prison. And I don't think people have accurate knowledge of that. And that's one of the reasons that what you have to say is so valuable. And the purpose of this whole Iowa Prison Perspectives is to talk about all the different areas that have to do and affect incarcerated people and their families. So thank you very much, Tammy.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Thanks for
And
having me today, Sue.
yes, thank you very much for agreeing. And you did wonderful.
Thank you.
Um, if you, the public, want to comment, I would love to hear your comments. I would, whether you agree or disagree, if you feel you have someone who ought to be interviewed, if you feel you would like to be interviewed, please feel free to contact me. My name is Sue Hutchins, and the email at or the Gmail address that you can reach me at is excuse me, Iowa Prison Perspectives at gmail.com. And it's IA Prison Perspectives at gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Comments are very welcome. I would like this to turn into a discussion about prison, about what changes may need to be made, about how we as a community can be uh, more knowledgeable about prison, not only the incarcerated people, but the families. My heart is with the families. So I will close for now, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much for looking in.